Hi everyone. Today, Ms. Groover and I are going to go over with you how to take Cornell notes. So Cornell notes are a method for note taking, for organized note taking, that will help you to organize all of your information and, if done correctly, should be a really effective study tool for you. So what we are asking you to do this year is to take your notes in Cornell note format and see if it's something that works for you. Because one of the goals for us is to help you to find tools that help you to study successfully. We think Cornell notes are a really effective tool for studying, and we want you to try them out this year to see if they work for you. So what we're going to do in this video is we are going to walk you step by step through the process of gathering all of your information, making sure you have the key information that you need to put into your notes. So this picture is showing you lesson 1. So you should have your workbook out. It is workbook volume B. It's actually has the polar bear on the front of it. That's the workbook that you want to have in front of you. And you want to have it out to lesson 1, Introduction to Living Things. And it says the essential question is, what are living things? And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe the necessities of life. Okay, what do living things need to live? And all of the characteristics that living things share. All right, so in your workbook, go ahead and turn to page 6. It should say at the top, share and share alike. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by modeling for you how you are always going to start your Cornell notes. And you're always gonna start by reading first and underlining the key information. So what characteristics do living things share? I'm going to read this paragraph and then I'm going to underline for you the key information, what's most important, and I want you to model that. I want you to underline what I do. So what characteristics do living things share? An amazing variety of living things exist on Earth. These living things may seem very different, but they are all alike in several ways. What does a dog have in common with a bacterium? What does a fish have in common with a mushroom? There are 5 characteristics of that all living things share. So really, this gives you a lot of information, but there's only one key concept here. There are 5 characteristics that all living things share. So I'm going to use my pencil, and I'm going to underline that sentence. Okay, so here's what's really important about underlining that key information. The information that you underline is what you are going to use to make your Cornell notes. So this part of the process is really, really important, because if you find the correct key information, then it's going to be so much easier for you to write your Cornell notes, because all you're going to do then is go back and you're going to organize into notes what you underlined. So let's go ahead with the next paragraph. Living things are made of cells. All living things are made of one or more cells. A cell is a membrane-covered structure that contains all of the materials necessary for life. Cells are the smallest unit of life, which means they are the smallest structures that can perform life functions. Most cells are so small they cannot be seen without a microscope. The membrane that surrounds the cell separates the cell's contents from its environment. Unicellular organisms are made up of only one cell. Multicellular organisms are made up of more than one cell. Some of these organisms have trillions of cells. Cells in a multicellular organism usually perform specialized functions. So let's go back now and underline what is the key important information. So we have a definition there. So we need to underline the definition for a cell. So a cell is a membrane-covered structure that contains all the materials necessary for life. Okay? We might want to say that they're the smallest unit of life, and keep in mind, we don't have to write complete sentences. In our Cornell notes, we're going to use bullet points. So we don't have to underline complete sentences. And we probably also want smallest structures that can perform life functions. I can't underline very straight, but you get the concept. So then if we go down further, we have two more definitions. We have a definition for unicellular organisms. They're only made up of one cell, so we want that. And then we also have a definition for a multicellular organism. Multicellular organisms are made up of more than one cell. So I think we have all the key information now for this section. All right, now look at page 7. Let's do the same thing on page 7. So living things respond to their environment. I'm going to read the first paragraph first. We'll highlight or underline the key information, and then we'll go to the second paragraph. So all living things have the ability to sense change in their environment and to respond to that change. A change that affects the activity of an organism is called a stimulus. Plural is stimuli. A stimulus can be gravity, light, sound, a chemical, hunger, or anything else that causes an organism to respond in some way. For example, when your pupils are exposed to light, a stimulus, they become smaller, a response. So you see, thinking key information, we have another definition. So we need to underline the definition for stimulus. It's a change that affects the activity of an organism. And then we probably should also underline some of the examples of a stimulus. So we've got gravity, light, sound, chemical, hunger. Anything that causes an organism to respond in some way. So it's got to be something that's going to cause you to respond. So when your stomach growls, that causes you to respond by saying, oh, I'm hungry, and you go get some food. So your stomach growling is the stimulus. Your response is going and getting something to eat. So the next paragraph. Even though an organism's outside environment may change, conditions inside its body must stay relatively constant. Many chemical reactions keep an organism alive. These reactions can only happen when conditions are exactly right. An organism must maintain stable internal conditions to survive. The maintenance of a stable internal environment is called homeostasis. Your body maintains homeostasis by sweating when it gets hot and shivering when it gets cold. Each of these actions keeps the body at a stable internal temperature. Okay, so we have another definition that we want to put in our notes. So we need the definition for homeostasis. It is the maintenance of a stable internal environment is called homeostasis. Now, we should have some examples. So for you, when your body gets too hot, you sweat, and that's what cools you down. When your body gets too cold, you shiver. That's what warms your body up. You don't have to think about sweating or shivering. Your body just naturally does it in order to maintain that homeostasis. So there is the key information, the important information that we want to have in our Cornell notes for pages 6 and 7. Okay, so now that we finished underlining our key information for pages 6 and 7, now we are going to start working on our Cornell notes. So you should have a notebook, either a spiral bound notebook, a composition book, and you want to open to the first page. And what you're going to do is you're going to draw, kind of looks like an off-sided T on your piece of paper. So it kind of looks like this. Where you have the left side smaller than the right side. Because this is where your headings and information is going to be. Here's where all of your key info is going to go. So across the top, we're going to write some important things because we need to make sure our notes are organized. You need to make sure that when you go to study, you know which notes you need to be studying. So at the top, we're going to write lesson 1 and what it's called, Introduction to Living Things. Okay, you're going to write your name, so I'm just going to write your name. And then you're going to write what group you're in. So if you are Mod 3, you're going to be writing pufferfish. If you're Mod 4, you're going to be writing seahorses. If you're Mod 6, you're going to write stingrays. And if you're Mod 7, you're going to write sharks. And then you're going to put the first letter of your teacher's last name at the end of it. So if I'm working with Mod 3, I would write pufferfish, W, or if I'm in Ms. Gruber's class, I'm going to write pufferfish, G. And then I'm going to write the date that I am taking these notes, just so you have an idea of when you did these notes. So I'm going to put today's date, which is August 31st, 2020. So now we have the structure of our Cornell notes set up. Now we're ready to go into page 6 and 7 and pull out that key information. Okay, so looking at page 6, the first thing we underlined was there are 5 characteristics that all living things share. So that is information that we want to have in our notes. So I'm going to put a bullet point over here. I'm going to write this. Now we're going to go to the first heading. Living things are made of cells. So I'm going to write the heading over here, and then I'm going to write the information that goes with that heading in this area. It's a really good idea to skip a space. So I'm just going to put this here, and that kind of shows you that you're skipping a space. It just helps to keep your notes organized, because what you want is you want notes that are really, really easy for you to read. So I'm going to write over here, living things are made of cells. And then I'm going to write my information that I underlined. So the first thing we underlined was the definition. So I'm going to put a bullet point, definition of a cell. Membrane covered structure. That contains all of the materials necessary for life. Okay, we also can say it's the smallest structure. That can perform life functions. The other thing we have under here is the definitions for unicellular and multicellular. So unicellular, and remember we don't need to write complete sentences. So unicellular, made of one cell. And multicellular, made of more than one cell. Okay, so that is all the information that we took from page 6 that we said is the key information that we would need to know if we were studying this for some type of assessment. Okay, now I'm on page 7. The heading is living things respond to their environment, so I put that over here on the left-hand side. And now I'm going to put my notes that I underlined in my information space. I'm going to use bullets again, and remember, you don't need to write complete sentences. So the first thing that we underlined was the definition for a stimulus. So I'm going to put a bullet point, and I'm going to write stimulus. And a stimulus is a change that affects the activity of an organism. And we have some examples that we underlined. And the examples we underlined were gravity, light, sound, chemicals, hunger. Okay, so anything that's going to cause a response. The other thing that we underlined was homeostasis. So that's another definition. So I'm going to put a bullet point. And we said homeostasis is the maintenance of a stable internal environment. And then we had two examples. So you sweat when hot and shiver when cold. Now, I was able to fit these notes on one page because I'm using a pretty large whiteboard. Depending on the size of your writing, some people write really tiny, some people write larger, or depending on how big your notebook is, you might have needed to go to the back of the first page. That's fine. All you're gonna do when you need to go to the next page is just set up the structure again. It's kind of off-sided T, and then just keep taking your notes. Okay, so you will probably have more than one page of notes as you're working on these Cornell notes. So what we would like you to do now is turn in your book to page 8. We would like you on your own to read page 8. It's living things reproduce, that's the heading. You're gonna read that information. We want you to underline what you think is the key information, and then we want you to do the Cornell notes. You're going to keep going with this. So I would have to go to the next page. So I would flip to the back, and you can use the back of your paper. So I would flip to the back. After I read page 8 and I underline all my key information, then I'm going to set up my T. Okay, I'm going to write all this stuff for the heading at the top again because I want to make sure I know that these are continuation of my notes. Oops, that's a 2. My name, pufferfish, and a W if I have Walker, and G if I have Groover, and the date. And then I'm going to write what the heading was. So the heading for page 8 was living things reproduce. And then I'm going to make my bulleted points of my notes. So what you are going to do right now is you're going to read page 8, take your time. Sometimes you have to read it more than one time because sometimes it's not always easy to find the key information. underline what you think the key information is, and then we want you to set up your Cornell notes just like we did, going back to look at your key information, put that stuff as bullet points in your Cornell notes. And then Ms. Groover and I will go over it with you to see if your notes match ours. Okay, take some time to do that right now.